Kudu here. Listen to Safari. Bits and bytes from the bush. Wilderness-wise with eco-training.
My name is Lazarus Moalosi. I work as an instructor in eco-training Mashatu. For the past 12 years, I was guiding in the Okavango Delta and Chobe and Linyanti areas as a guide, which is very interesting. So at the moment, I'm based here in Mashatu as an instructor. So I'm going to tell you about impalas. So impalas are basically very, very important animals to have in the ecosystem. It shows that the ecosystem is very rich. They're one of the flagship mammals to have in the area because they also attract lots of other predators in the area. As we always joke and nickname them McDonalds of the bush because they've got two black stripes on the rump. They shape like a letter M, and all the predators, they like to feed on them. Just the reason being that there's a good population of impalas in the area, whereas people end up mistaking them that they are not very intelligent animal, but that is not the truth. So actually the truth is that there are so many that are doing very well, they're breeding well in the area, so they end up populating the area, and then it makes it easier for predators to be hunting them. But however, they've got a very interesting defense mechanisms that they use for protecting and defending themselves from predators. As we all know that different predators in areas, they have got different hunting techniques. So usually impalas, when they resting, they will be taking turns into looking out for predators. So if it's a group of 20, for example, so 15 will be lying down, relaxed, being in inactive status, and then 5 impalas will be looking around the whole area, north, east, south, west, just making sure there's no any predator trying to surprise them. So all the hunting is about surprising. So if you have a few impalas and looking around while the others are resting, that's a very good defense mechanism. And also when they feeding, it's the same thing as well. So they take 10, so that helps them quite a lot to be able to escape the predators. So just like I was saying, telling you about the population of the impalas, they have got a very interesting breeding behavior. Unlike most of the antelopes where you have one male ram that monopolizes the breeding within his territory, impalas, they've got a very different breeding behavior. You've got during the rutting season, which is usually in winter time, around any time from March, April, May, June, can be up to July, depending in the area. So all male impalas, they will be grouping themselves in a bachelor herd, which you always call them boys club. And it's very interesting to see them rutting in this season, which they make this growling noise, which we call it rutting. So for some people, when you hear that noise, it sounds like a lion, it sounds like a leopard, it just sounds like a big cat. So usually people they get scared about this noise. So when they do it, this boys club or the bachelor herd, they will be in their territory. So you're talking about maybe about 20 to 30 male animals together. And all they're doing is chasing each other and fighting. They even fight, they can fight to death. They can break each other's horns. That's why we always see male impala with one horns. People always joke and call them unicorns. So when they're doing all this fighting, the most thing that they want is to win the fight. So the male that wins the fight that day, he will actually be the dominant male of this bachelor herd. But what he will do, he will move to the nearest, because everything gets organized. You get the boys club, the bachelor herd, and then females, they get organized in a harem herd with all the other youngsters, even the other males which are not ready for breeding yet. Talking about any males who are between 3 and 2 years younger. So When he wins this fight, he will go to the nearest harem herd, and he will become a very busy guy. So he will chase any females that he finds to try and speed the reaction of being in heat. They will be in heat, but he needs to speed up the reaction. And as he's doing this, he's also working too hard, keeping the other males not to come into these females. And also he has to keep these females so that they don't go to the other males in his territory. And for him to impregnate one female, he has to mate especially more than 12 copulations, which is a hard job for him. So imagine he's chasing the females to stimulate them to be in heat. He's making sure the females, they don't leave his territory to the other males. He's making sure the males, other males, they are not coming into his harem herd. So he gets very lucky if he has to impregnate one female. And we're looking at him being able to hold these females in his territory for between about 72 hours up to 100 hours. So you could imagine how many days is that. So not very long. We're talking about 3 to 4 days. And then he will lose weight because he doesn't have time to feed. He doesn't have time to drink water. It's all about mating so that he can successfully pass his genes. So if he impregnate 1 or 2 females, that's a very good luck for him. And then after he gets weak between these 3 to 4 days, the same fight is still going on within the boys club or the bachelor head. The next male who wins the fight will come and chase away this guy because he will be weak. He probably lost about 30% of his body weight between these 3 to 4 days. He gets kicked out, and there's 2 things that he can do once he gets kicked out. It's either returning to the bachelor herd straight away, or some other males, they get disappointed in a way that they don't actually go back to the bachelor herd. They end up hanging around by themselves in an area, hoping that they might get a chance to go back into the harem herd. But obviously, because he's already weak, at the end he becomes an easy prey for leopards mainly, or lions, because you remember here in the bush, we always say safety in numbers. So if he's alone, he becomes an easy prey. So that's where he will belong to. And the fight will be still going on. Different males will be taking turns. And that's where the successful breeding comes, because there's lots of variety of genes being passed from one male. At the end of the breeding season, we actually talking about all male impalas between the age of 5 years and above being able to mate with the females, which makes them to become successful breeders. As opposite with the comparison of, for example, male kudu or a male wild beast having to monopolize his herd, and if his genes are bad, then the breeding won't be as successful. So that is why we're seeing so many impalas around here. And one of the most important things as well that makes them to be successful in breeding, all the females, they do what we call a synchronized birth. So they will all group together, and just towards after the first or second rains, then they will do a 2 to 3 week flood market to the predators. They will all give birth at the same time. And predators, of course, they will be waiting to take their babies because they are easy prey before they just become fully matured. And they will actually take 50% of the lambs, and 50% will survive, which is a very, very good successful rate. Unlike comparing to the antelopes that don't do synchronized birth, every time predators are very intelligent. They know smaller babies are easy prey. So every time when a kudu gives birth, a leopard will be waiting there when the mother tries to feed, because other animals, they're not in a big group, then their baby's taken quickly. So impalas, they do it very well by synchronizing the birth. And at the same time, when the rest of the females are feeding, then 2 or 3 females will be basically looking after the babies. So the babies will form a kindergarten, and then they will have 3 or 4 adults, depending on the number of the babies. Then those adults will be looking after the babies while they're resting, making sure that predators don't come to them, while the other gives a chance to the other mothers to be feeding. So they can feed the whole day because they take turns in looking after the babies as well. So these babies, they also, even though they're still not fully matured, but just after birth, within half an hour to 45 minutes, they can be able to run full speed of maybe about 20 to 25 kilometers per an hour. which is very good for them. Yeah. So impalas are very interesting animals as well, even though it's not scientifically proven. But in an area, if the rainy season is very late, so they are able to extend the gestation period for at least plus minus 2 weeks. They're not doing it intentionally. It's connected with nature in a way that because the rains will be late, so once the rains are late, then once they're not feeding on green grasses, green shootings, which are very, very nutritious and lots of proteins, so they will be not taking in their body any nutritious food that will kick the birth hormones to take place. So that is why they can, as soon as the rains come after they've been late, then once they eat green food and new shootings, those can kick in the birth hormones, then birth can take place as well. Yeah. And the other thing, we often see them in the mornings. They are very active animals. That is why actually they made me to like them so much, and they are my favorite animals. And people always ask me why, and I simply just tell them that there's good population of impalas wherever I look around in the bush, behind the shade, northeast, southwest. I always see impala, and they're always looking happy, and they're always doing something very interesting. They will be, especially in the mornings when it's still nice and cool, they will be jumping around, kicking their legs in the air, and exercising as a way of making sure that he's healthy. If a predator comes, he will escape the predator. They do what we call rocking high jump, where they will jump into the air and start kicking the hind legs, so that also they have a metatarsal gland, fetlock glands behind the hind feet. So exercising, learning to kick them out, so that the scent sprays into the air, so that they use them to locate each other in case they get spread out by predators. Usually the animals that live in very close associations, they form big herds, because for them safety is the most important thing. Because if you look at them, they are not extremely very big animals. So if looking at their size, so it helps them living in big close associations. It helps them quite a lot with safety. So we're talking about between 20 and 40 animals in a herd. The more food there is, the more they breed more and they multiply. Yeah. And also their lifespan, we're talking about anything between 8 and 12 years old. Yeah. And they're very interesting animals as well. They also commonly use what we call Impala maidens, where you have different males within their territory. They will plant these maidens in different areas within their territory, and they mark their territories by defecating and urinating on those maidens as a way of passing the message to the females that there's healthy males in the area. And females as well, occasionally they go through these maidens and they mark their territory as well by defecating and urinating there as a way of sending a message to the males, especially when they in heat during the breeding season, just to make the males aware that they're almost ready for mating, so they shouldn't go far away from them.
For more audio safaris, visit kuduhere.com.